Hello, BookTube. Sorry for the absence from your airwaves yesterday. I had unexpected company all afternoon. Very needy company. And then I got about a 6-hour break in which I did my day's writing. And then I had the return of company. Even needier. All night long. So it was an absolute nightmare for us introverts. But I'm back now in the peace and quiet of my solitary little book cell with my Frida Bean. And I've got some mail, and I thought that'd be a fine way to start the day. We've got a bunch of packages here, and it ends in a big box. So let's see what we have. See if anything is squeal-worthy. What have we here? Oh, fantastic. Yeah. That's an invoice. Gross. All right, well, leaving aside the nightmarish prospect that one would pay money for a book, this is something I'm looking forward to. This comes out early in the new year. This is a historical novel by Rhys Bowen called The Victory Garden. Isn't that lovely? Look at that. Let's see here. Okay, well, it doesn't have a pub sheet, and the back only has her biography, which you're going to know anyway. She writes historical novels, or historical murder mysteries, and she's won everything, multiple Agatha, Anthony, and Macavity awards. Her books have been translated to many languages, and she has fans around the world. But this is not a mystery. This is a historical novel. As the Great War continues to take its toll, headstrong 21-year-old Emily Bryce is determined to contribute to the war effort. She is convinced by a cheeky and handsome Australian pilot that she can do more. They're usually saying that. And it is not long before she falls in love with him and accepts his proposal of marriage. When he is sent back to the front, Emily volunteers as a quote-unquote land girl, tending to the neglected grounds of a large Devonshire estate. It's here that Emily discovers the long-forgotten journals of a medicine woman who devoted her life to her herbal garden. The journals inspire Emily, and in the wake of the devastating news, they are her saving grace. Emily's lover has not only died a hero, but has left her terrified and with child. Since no one knows that Emily was never married, she adopts the charade of a war widow. And that sounds intriguing. I read this author's last historical novel and loved it. So we'll have yet more historical fiction for the new year. Let's see. Let's move on here. What is that? Huh? Ooh. Oh, you only got a little piece of it. You want it all. Oh, there you go. My little document shredder. Okay, this is coming out from Europa Editions. It's an advanced copy, so I don't have a cover for you. But this comes out in January in paperback. This is We Are Family by Fabio Bartolomei. Let's see here. A detailed and wonderfully comic diorama of modern Italy. We Are Family is heartwarming and inspiring, an adult fable about a modern-day Peter Pan, his everyday miracles, and the bittersweet quotidian joys of life. That's a mighty tall bill to fill. Al Santamaria is a child prodigy, probably a genius, perhaps even the greatest mind of the 20th century. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he, alone, will save the human race. He exists, like many kids, somewhere between reality and fantasy, enjoying time with imaginary friends and wielding magical powers. He has a wonderful relationship with his father, Mario Elvis, and his mother, Agnes, and he's convinced that he has the best family in the world. But life isn't all roses for the Santamaria family. Their existence seems suspended between conflicting impulses, bloated with delusions of grandeur and outsized ambition, and yet plagued by nostalgia for a past golden age. But for now, the only hero on the horizon is Al himself. He has the energy, imagination, and endurance and enchanting unself-consciousness of a child. And although he doesn't know it yet, he's going to remain a child his entire life. Okay, this is translated from the Italian by Anthony Sugar, who I am gathering from how many times I say that and how many times I read that. I'm gathering that Anthony Sugar either does not ever sleep or is in fact a whole floor full of people in a warehouse in Detroit somewhere. Because it seems like there's nothing written in Italian that he doesn't translate. That is a rough mock-up of the cover. That is our hero in the bathtub. But we shall see. That sounds like fun. All right, so let's move on here. Are you ready for another one, Bean? You ready? What's that? Wow! What do we got here? Oh God! Oh my! All right. Well, we just had a happy book. It's time for us to buckle down and get serious. This next one is by Mark Honigsbaum, and it is The Pandemic Century. 100 years of panic, hysteria, and hubris. Who's this Mr. Cheerful when he's at home? He's a medical historian, journalist, and author of The Fever Trail, In Search of a Cure for Malaria. He is currently a lecturer in City University in London. And this is all going to be about pandemics. Notice what's on the cover. That is a brilliant choice of cover. Birds. And the minute you know anything about pandemics, you will know how horrifyingly important and vital birds are. Let's see here. Each of us carries a viral lineage inside our DNA. Entirely true. Encoded in the 1 or 2% of the genetic data inherited in our earliest Neanderthal ancestors is the key to our continued survival in the face of thousands of infectious pathogens. Yet despite our biological defenses and a century of medical progress, viral and bacterial disasters continue to take us by surprise, inciting panic and dominating news cycles. Coinciding with the centennial of the end of the 1918 Spanish influenza epidemic, I believe the exact anniversary is March. Medical historian Mark Honigsbaum examines the last 100 years of infectious disease and fast-spreading outbreaks, from polio and Legionnaire's disease to HIV/AIDS and Ebola, from the Spanish flu of the 1924 outbreak of pneumonic plague in Los Angeles to the 1930 parrot fever pandemic. Throughout the more recent SARS, Ebola, and Zika epidemics, the last 100 years have been marked by a succession of unanticipated pandemic alarms. Like man-eating sharks, predatory pathogens are always present in nature, waiting to strike. When one is seemingly vanquished, others appear in its place. These pandemics remind us of the limits of scientific knowledge, as well as the role that human behavior and technologies play in the emergence and spread of microbial diseases. But that comparison is not actually true. Much as big a fan as I am of man-eating sharks, that comparing it to man-eating sharks waiting always for mankind is considerably underplaying things. Not only do man-eating sharks, it is easy to avoid man-eating sharks. It is easy, and the method of avoiding them is 100% guaranteed. Stay out of the water. Stay out of the water, and you will never be attacked by a man-eating shark. And instead, what a small and absolutely demented segment of humanity does is get on a long fiberglass board that makes their outline from below look like a seal, and go out and drift on the waves at the shore break, at the land shelf break, at dawn and dusk when sharks are feeding. There are surfers who do that on virtually every continent, every morning and every night. And that is the definition of insane behavior. You are asking a shark to come up and investigate whether or not to eat you. And the problem is, if a 10-foot long or 15-foot long creature that's made of cartilage and weighs 300 pounds and has 6 rows of incisor teeth, each one of which is an inch long and razor sharp, investigates whether or not to eat you, you will probably not survive the investigation, even if the verdict is, no, I don't want to eat you. But in order for the comparison with pandemic diseases to be accurate, especially new superviruses, in order for the comparison with man-eating sharks to be accurate, sharks have to be able to hunt you anywhere. Anywhere where, let's say, anywhere where there's water. So you turn on the shower, a shark could come out of the faucet right above your head. And also, even if we restrict it to ocean-going sharks, in order to increase the accuracy of the comparison, you would have to have it that sharks regularly confer with each other about where to find humans, and that if one shark somewhere off the coast of, of southern Mexico realizes there's a particular swimming bay where there are always people and it's easy to get to and no one suspects there are sharks because the water is fairly shallow, and decides that that is a good place to eat, the comparison would be accurate if that shark could almost instantaneously convey that information to every shark in a 100-mile radius. or if humans came up with a shark repellent and sharks were within 1/2 of one generation biologically immune to it. The danger is, in other words, much, much worse. Humankind is penetrating into all parts of the world where they never did before, and eating the wildlife that they find in those parts. Bushmeat is an unbelievably thriving industry all over the world. And that includes people catching, killing, ineptly butchering, poorly cooking, poorly preserving meat from animals that no human has ever eaten before. And not only that, but humans travel everywhere. they travel everywhere. We're in constant contact with all parts of the world now. That is an absolutely perfect breeding ground for a pandemic. And so far, humanity has been lucky. But the only reason that for the luck is that the pandemics have just been random. Once a pandemic starts to learn, then the game is over. There's no possibility you couldn't stack the bodies high enough to protect the uninfected. It wouldn't be possible, and it would be over pretty quick. Imagine something as dangerous as Ebola, for instance, which is extremely hard to contract. It's extremely hard to contract Ebola, but if you do, you're going to die of it. I mean, there is a survival rate, but it's an unbelievably ferocious infection. Unbelievably ferocious. Imagine if something that bad were communicable through the air, through coughing, through breathing. Imagine, in other words, if the world were caught again by something like the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, where people were infected in the morning and died in the night of the same day, where you'd be walking down the street and someone would just collapse right in front of you. Someone who collapsed without, they weren't being heroic. They didn't know they were infected. They were brought to the brink of death without even really being aware of it, without feeling anything more than mild discomfort. And they collapse on the sidewalk in an uptown Manhattan, and what happens? 24 people gather around to see if they're okay. They're all infected now. What are they going to do? Even if they knew they were infected, and were immediately rushed to a hospital. Everyone in the hospital's infected. Everybody on the rush route is infected. But they don't know they're infected. So they go home. Everyone they contact on the way is infected. Their family is infected. Everyone their family contacts is infected. It's a horrifying, it's a horrifying scenario. But let's see what the rest of the pub sheet has to say here. The Pandemic Century, that's this book, is an essential work of medical history that illustrates the mistakes made by government and scientific community alike that resulted in numerous and deadly regional, national, and even global pandemics. During the 2014 Ebola outbreak, President Obama acted quickly to prevent the spread of the disease across the Atlantic. Today, however, as the medical-industrial complex becomes increasingly dependent on technology and complex economic and political restraints, ever-present threat of global pandemic poses even greater risks. Notice how delicate the pub sheet writer is being. What was blamed? We're told that President Obama acted quickly to stop the international spread of Ebola in 2014, even in the teeth of concerted criticism that he was overreacting. He still did that. But then we're told the medical-industrial complex becomes increasingly dependent on technology and complex economic and political restraints. And does not mention the fact that if the the medical-industrial complex, if all the watchdogs in the current United States administration were unanimous in going to the Oval Office and telling the president, you need to do this because otherwise this is going to spread all over the world, he would say, well, maybe the world should pay to make sure it doesn't spread. And besides, I don't believe the science anyway. If this were true, I would be infected, and I'm not. A lot depends on leadership. If you don't have any, or if your leadership is stupid or mercenary or science-denying, the history of pandemics shows that a lot of the survival depends on leadership. So I guess we'll see what this book has to say. But the tumblers are in place for something awful, something really awful. No one is prepared to limit their contact with an infectious agent. No one is prepared to do that. And no one who flies for a living to businesses or whatever is prepared to stop doing that. No one. Anyway, by championing the work of doctors, researchers, community activists, and world leaders, the pandemic century proves that humanity will persevere. Well, yes, but okay, humanity persevered during the Black Death as well. The 20th century was an era of panic, hysteria, and fear when it came to infectious diseases. Yes, one in particular. But though danger may always loom, it does not have to spell our end. Okay. All right. Well, all right. I am obviously involved in this book. So this comes out in April. I will report back. Of course, it's a long time from now. Subjects of pandemics always fascinate me. I am immune to most of the diseases that are mentioned in books like this, and that makes it all the more nervous for me thinking about all the people I know who aren't. And also, of course, I can't help but think about the AIDS pandemic, which is still rampant in large parts of the world. The sheer amount of time, of lag time, between knowing what this was and getting it to a point where it could be managed as a chronic illness instead of meted out as an instantaneous death sentence. The amount of lag time involved between those two things was enormous. Shamefully enormous. And largely is because of human leadership factors, not limits in science. So pandemics scare me. they do. So I'll be looking forward to this book. Let's see here. I'm sorry, Bean. I've been keeping you waiting, haven't I? Oh. Here, you want some cardboard? You want some cardboard? Here you go. Okay. Okay, we saw the advanced copies of these. These are coming out this year, I believe. I think they might be November releases. Yeah, these are November releases. I read the advanced copies and they did nothing for me at all. Now I have the finished copies. I feel like I should go at them again. These are two things by Lucia Berlin. Evening in Paradise, a collection of stories, and Welcome Home, a memoir. These are now in really lovely finished copies, and matching finished copies. I didn't know what to make of them. I couldn't finish the memoir. And the short story struck me as very, very bad. So I don't know what to do about... I guess I will go at them again. This author was born in 1936 and died in 2004, and worked brilliantly but sporadically throughout the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Okay, well, I mean, she's the author of A Manual for Cleaning Women. That was a surprise hit, a surprise word-of-mouth hit, got lots of attention. I confess I didn't see the worth in that book either, so maybe I'll go at these again. They're very short. I could do both of them very quickly, just in case. Just I'll give it another try, just in case I miss something. So let's move on here. What is that? Bean, you have cardboard hanging from your whiskers. Oh. All right, what's this? Oh, okay. All right. This is a November book. I can't remember if we saw the advanced copy of this or not. This is Heads You Win by the inimitable Jeffrey Archer, thank God. Inimitable, thank God. And the pub sheet has a big red warning. Don't reveal the twist. This is his first standalone novel since the conclusion of the Clifton Chronicles. And it explores two possibilities for the life of a Russian teenager looking to escape an oppressive life in 1968 Leningrad. Heads, New York. Tails, London. Alexander Karpenko is no ordinary child, and from an early age it is clear he is destined to lead his countrymen. But when his father is assassinated by the KGB for defying the state, he and his mother have to escape from Russia if they hope to survive. At the docks, they are confronted with an irreversible choice. Should they board a container ship bound for America or Great Britain? Alexander leaves that choice to the toss of a coin, as Jeffrey Archer characters tend to do. I don't know if I have the advanced copy of this before. I've seen copies, and I have resisted the urge, but I shouldn't, because Jeffrey Archer's good, horrible, sinful fun. so I will probably read this this weekend. Oh, what are you doing? No. You've got plenty of stuff on the floor to eat. You don't have to eat anything else. You're such a baby. Oh, you're such a baby. Here, you want to see your fans? Let your fans see you savage little marmot. There they are. Ooh. 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 No, don't bite me, Frida. You have all sorts of things to bite. Okay. All right, let's move on to the box. We've got our box, and then we'll be done with our mail. Let's see what we have here. Almost certainly, it's one thing that could have been put in an envelope, and it's just being put in a box instead. But that's fine by me. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes they're larger things that couldn't really have gone in a box. Let's see. Let's see what we have here. Here, let's leave that aside. Oh my! Oh, goodness gracious! Oh, oh, bless the people at Yale! I tell you. Okay, okay, great. This is this is. You wouldn't think I'd be so happy about this particular thing, but I am. I am very much so. This is In Search of Lost Time. Proust. This is the Remembrance of Things Past. This is the Moncrief translation, edited and annotated by William Carter. This is an ongoing project from Yale. This is the volume 3, and it's just they're oversized paperbacks, and they come with the translation, but also with lots of side notes. So it's a really a labor of love. It's a huge amount of work that goes on here. And I think I have the first 2 volumes in this set, so I'm glad to have the third one. They're also lovely. They're also just lovely. It's just a lovely. There's 2 Proust projects, at least 2 that I know of in English, going on right now. One is a gigantically airbrushed and annotated version of the Moncrief translation. The other is a new translation of the whole thing. So okay, great. Let's give you a little Proust in your day. His monumental 7-part novel, In Search of Lost Time, is considered by many to be the greatest novel of the 20th century. This volume is the latest in a landmark edition, edited and annotated by noted Proust scholar William Carter, who brings the classic C.K. Scott Moncrief translation closer to the spirit and style of the author's original. In this book, we follow Proust's young protagonist as he advances through aristocratic French society in the late 19th century Paris. A departure from the intimacy of the sprawling novel's previous 2 installments, Part 3 unfolds against a colorful backdrop of Parisian life, moving from literary salon to opulent social gathering to provide a biting and satirical commentary on culture, human foibles, the way of the world, and the irretrievable loss of time. There you go. All right, fantastic. I have been sort of diffidently keeping up with these. This is also coming out in November in a paperback. And now I have this thing, so I will. My November reading docket is doable. Unlike October. October simply defeated me, but November is doable. So I will add this to it. All right, fantastic. Well, that does it then. So we have In Search of Lost. Yeah, is that right? In Search of Lost Time, Volume 3. I keep wanting to say Remembrance of Things Past. In a new version of the Moncrief translation. So brushed up, the infelicities or the inaccuracies airbrushed out of quietly corrected, and tons of annotations. Then Heads You Win by Jeffrey Archer. 2 works by Lucia Berlin, that one a memoir and one a collection of short stories. Then The Pandemic Century. And We Are Family, about a charismatic young boy, and The Victory Garden by Rhys Bowen, a historical novel. So that is it. That is our mail. That plus lots of packages to please the bean. So I will wrap this up for now, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.